Okay, g'day guys. So today we are talking about the lateral fly machine. Really underrated, underused and undervalued machine this for developing your skill when it comes to activating that medial head of your deltoid and really diving deep into your lateral flies when it comes to using, say, dumbbells or potentially a barbell if you really wanted to, with a single arm, whatever. Anyway, point is, okay, you can't really stuff this exercise up, obviously, because it goes out wide and so on, but there are a few fundamentals that we need to tick off whilst in this position. Now, what you want to find first and foremost is that when we are starting in this machine, we need to make sure, obviously, of seat height. Now, look, this goes without saying, but if we are too high, then we aren't going to get that full range. Now, the full range that we're after is we're probably looking to finish at about this position here. So elbows are just above the shoulder joint itself, but we don't want to be raising too high. And the reason for that is it puts our shoulders in a very vulnerable position, and it's probably just not worth it. It's not worth going into that position for the gains that you might get from that position. So risk to reward ratio. Okay. Now also, what we know about this our shoulder joint is that the way it sits is that we want to be slightly forward in order to gain the most lateral head activation. So instead of coming out and flapping your arms like a bird, we actually want to be slightly forward, maybe not so much 45, but anywhere in between 45 and completely parallel with your body. So we're aiming for a slight tilt forward. Now, I'm fortunate enough that this chair behind me does slightly tilt forward, so that will play in really well with creating stability. However, if not, I do suggest maybe take your upper back slightly off and lean slightly forward to gain the most out of this particular exercise. Right, with that being said, let's talk about stability. Obviously, you've got the back brace to work with, so definitely work with it if you possibly can. Our legs obviously aren't so much in the game, and so what we can do is just place a nice even foot position apart wherever is comfortable, but I want you to think of two pivot points, and the pivot points are your hips are going to be driving back into the back of the bench, and number two is your shoulder blades going to be pulling down and creating what we call a flat back. A flat back. Our scapula sits like this on our shoulder blades. Our lats insert at the bottom of the scapula. We want to pull them back and down and create a flat back like so. So you're going to look something along the lines of this. Okay, now when we do that, what happens is that it makes our scapula really stable. So this will then promote this muscle to really come alive and take majority of the load, which is what we're after. We want to place our muscles in the most disadvantaged position to move load in order to place the most amount of stress on that particular muscle, and then over a period of time or accumulation of stimulus of that muscle will then create gains. So by pulling our shoulder blades back and down, it stabilizes the scapula, and what we need to realize is that this muscle, as much as we like to think it's massive, it's not. Compared to every other muscle in the body, it's not within the top 10 of muscle sizes. So all we want to think about when we are executing this lift is that we want to take this point here where it inserts onto our arm, okay, and we want to think about contracting and bringing it closer to this top point there. That is as far as that muscle goes. It's pulling from this point back up to there. That's where we want to go, okay? So we need to eliminate things like rocking, swinging, switching off those shoulder blades, because all we are trying to activate is that little muscle there. Point B, okay, wants to move back to point A, because that's where we originate and that's where we insert. Okay, that being said, so let's go through how we're going to start this. Now, we're fortunate enough that we can use the handles. However, I want you to start thinking about this muscle deeper. So I want you to move this weight with your elbows rather than your hands. So a way to think about it is that potentially we've amputated our arms off and we're pulling from the elbows is one way to go about it. Another way, you potentially just close your eyes and think about that point B going to point A. However it is that you're going to do this, but I want you to take your hands out of the game. So what we're going to do, you can either bunch them up or just rest them on the hands, but we are pulling out with the elbows. we're going to create our 2 points. Our point 1 is our hips driving back into the back bench. Point 2, shoulder blades back and down. Now again, if you want to lean slightly forward like this, take it back off the bench, that's fine. Okay, if your bench is straight up and down. Otherwise, if you're lucky like me, this is already on the slight 45, we are going to wedge yourself onto the bench. From here, with the elbows, we're going to drive up and squeeze hard. Now, little trick for beginners, we're going to think cowabunga. So my thumb is going to end up below my pinky when I do this, because when we do this, you're going to get a greater activation through this medial head. So I strongly suggest you use that little trick right there in order to get more out of this exercise. So again, we're thinking pinkies above thumbs, and you can either have these in the game or you don't need to have them in the game. Let's assume that we're not. Okay, so pinkies below thumbs, up, squeeze hard, 1. Pull your shoulder blades back and down. That was a poor example. Okay, points 1 and 2, up, and control your negative, up, control your negative. And that there, team, is what we're looking to do. Now, what I do suggest with this particular exercise to really emphasize that muscle coming alive, control your negative. It doesn't have to be, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, all that crap. It's just keep that tension going through that muscle by controlling your eccentric portion. It could be a 2-second count, so 1, 2, okay, that's fine. And then once you get to the point in which you start to lose that tension, we're popping back up, little pause at the top, show that you've controlled the weight, okay, little pause at the top, slow back down, touch your lats or your sides, control back down, touch, drive, and watch those deltoids come absolutely alive, accumulate that stress, build out those boulder shoulders, and they're going to be looking really good really soon. So that there, team, is how you want to go about doing your lateral raise machine.